because what we're talking about here with the I ams is really this story of a conceptualized self. So this is really kind of what we're exploring with the I am exercise. We're exploring what are the stories you have or hold about yourself. And the funny thing about these stories, is that they're quite powerful in a sense. They're quite powerful because they basically, I'm just going to talk about this last point here, is that once we accept a story as true, it essentially receives I call it an all access pass to behavior. In other words, if, I have a story of myself that I'm just a failure. Like, I'm just a failure. I'm never going to succeed at anything. I am a failure. Then when the opportunities come in my life, for example, to apply for a job, or to go on a date, or to do something where failure would be an option, that story that I hold, it takes influence over the behavior that I choose, irrespective of what my values are. In other words, it's almost like it overrides, the values we may hold, because we know that I am this way. And take a silly example, for example, I'm not a morning person. Some of us might have the story, I'm not a morning person. Perhaps more accurately, we could say, I'm aware that getting up in the morning, when I get up early in the morning, I still feel tired. And I know that when I feel tired, I'm less likely to engage positively with others. That's probably, it's a bit elaborate, but I'm just making a point of saying that when we hold a story of ourselves like this, when we hold it as this is me, it naturally influences the behavior without our objection, because we are identifying with the story. It is my story. It is my story. And the thing about this, a lot of the I ams that we just did are really written out of a yearning to belong. The stories that we have about ourselves, they're not like, we're not born with those stories. We're not born with those stories, but we come to see ourselves and identify ourselves largely to relate to others. When I say I am funny, it's a relatable term. We're essentially saying I am funny, and in comparison to some others, I am perhaps funnier, in a sense. If I say myself I am lazy, it's a comparative term, We're not comparing ourselves to a sloth when we're saying that we're lazy. We're comparing ourselves to the humankind, So these conceptualized self are our stories that we hold of ourselves. Now let's do some more with this exercise. So I'm hoping to explain the self as context through a practical exercise here. So you still got your list. Keep your list. Let's kind of talk about one thing here that's really important. That I forgot to mention, which is that with the self as context, the stories that we hold about ourselves, really interesting study that Steve Hayes actually sent me because I was trying to find it. And this study it shows that the stories that we hold about ourselves, get this, it's really powerful. The stories we hold about ourselves actually block out sensory input from the world that would tell us differently. Does that make sense? So if I see myself as a failure, I'm a failure, then what research has shown in this light is that the literal information coming from the world that tells me that I'm not a failure is blocked out by my story that I hold on myself. Now, this is important because it presents a challenge to the concept of cognitive restructuring when it comes to this level of cognition and belief. In other words, what I'm saying is that when someone has a perceived identity of self, that I am this, there is not really much use providing them with alternative information or evidence if they're holding on to the conceptualized self that way. I might reframe it, not that there's maybe not use, but that there is an inherent challenge in it, in that the sensory input from your information will actually be filtered through the story that they have about themselves.